Hello, and welcome to Mind of Micah. Today on the program, we have part 4 of the podcast Hype House from Hell. It's just getting good, fam. Thanks for joining me. As always, subscribe to Micah's Read of the Week, the newsletter available in the description of this podcast. It's free. It's in your inbox on Mondays. And check out Backdoor Cover NBA playoffs rolling along. We continue from part 4. When employees informed Himalaya of their experiences at the Hype House, the company told Vencer to open an investigation with High Studio's own budget, Vencer says. The Verge attempted to reach the lawyer who conducted this investigation, but received no response. Vencer says he never saw the findings himself, as they were sent directly to Himalaya, but he heard secondhand from 2 employees that the lawyer confirmed drug use in the home. Himalaya did not respond to multiple requests for comment on the lawsuit or the investigation. The whole situation ostensibly spooked Himalaya. In a rapid effort to get away from the mess that was High Studios, Himalaya publicly separated itself from the studio on March 5th, 2020, with seemingly no plan in place for what it might mean. Himalaya portrayed the split as a strategic move to, quote, allow both businesses to grow in a press release. That's a great one, by the way. It's one the journalists seem to fall for a lot, too. When companies are just falling apart. Quote, a strategic move to allow both companies to grow. It was just such corporate speak for nonsense. I'll continue. Vencer decided to give High Studios a new name. Notorious. Gosh, now that I think about it, I think this guy might have reached out to me at one point. I'll continue. Himalaya's intended clean break didn't go as planned, however. The company wanted to keep High Studios clients. It owned High Studios, after all. But Vencer seemingly had other ideas. Once the company separated, Vencer set Notorious up to essentially take over High Studios' roster of shows and creators, according to an email sent to creators by Wang and obtained by The Verge. Per the email, Vencer allegedly locked the Himalaya and former High Studios production team out of their emails, shared drive system, and megaphone account, which hosted every podcast the team created and published. That gave Notorious nearly full control over the network. Quote, this is not only illegal, but creates lots of difficulties to release new episodes for many shows, the email from the CEO says. Well, no joke. The Notorious team also locked Himalaya's accountant out of the shared drive that included documents she needed to pay creators, according to an email. At that point, Himalaya's board began preparing a lawsuit to try and regain access to the emails and shared drive. It seemingly never filed this lawsuit. Both sides began reaching out to creators per emails viewed by The Verge to win them over. Notorious emailed creators and declare its, quote, full independence from Himalaya, with a name that reflects the company's, quote, innovative spirit, culture, and dedication to delivering bold content. The conversations I had were surreal. Like, this is a bunch of suits, and they're talking to me like they're arguing parents, says one creator who asked to remain anonymous because of their ongoing work with Notorious. It really did feel like a weird divorce or something. Vencer denies locking Himalaya's talent out of any accounts, although a source familiar with the situation who asked to remain anonymous over fears of retaliation said Vencer instructed High Studios / Notorious's team to change all the passwords. Because Vencer's name was on the lease for the home, he stayed in the Hype House and made it Notorious's office as well as his actual home. And wouldn't you know it, that's when things got even messier. The story continues. Following the Notorious transition, Steele says the house fell into disrepair. He and another member of the team say furniture was destroyed, dog poop sat on the floor inside the house. Jesus. Trash, including baby diapers, would linger in the driveway for weeks. Vencer, he said, would occasionally be passed out in the living room when podcast guests were coming over. Quote, it went from being a really pristine place to create that could have been something amazing, but it got mismanaged to the point where it turned into a dump, Steele says. It turned into a personal haven for this middle-aged man to relive his childhood. Ouch. The source familiar with the split backs up these claims and says the stay of the house got in the way of work. This person recalls a time when ice cream was smeared all over the screen the team used to give presentations. And Venser, this person says, laughed when his team pointed it out instead of offering to get it cleaned up. At the same time, this person also says men in the house, including Venser, would hang out without their shirts on, adding to the frat-like environment. Okay. I had to walk up to Venser, to a guy, Venser, that I worked for, to talk about something business-related, and he's got no shirt on. He's got his gut hanging out, and he's got a beer in his hand, someone says, adding that food also sat out for days, attracting flies. I am so grossed out at this point, but I will continue. This person also alleges the studio manager once had to hang up the phone after stepping in dog poop that sat in the studio. Good Lord. At this point, Venser, his wife, 3 kids, 4 cats, and 2 dogs had moved into the house, making it exactly that, a home. But when people who had been using the space as a workplace didn't get the memo that this was now a place where a family lived. As Steele started spending more time with his team at the LA house during the spring and summer 2020, he says things got less and less professional. For one, he says people in the house started out just smoking marijuana, which is legal in California. But later, some moved on to doing lines of cocaine in the studios. He also says members of the team would get blamed for things in the house they didn't do. Quote, it was always assumed, like, let's just say all the liquor at the bar was drunk up. They assumed my guys were doing it. I was just like, my guys didn't do that. He says the podcasters brought their own drinks. We got guys on our podcast that are coming in with bottles of high-end liquor like Ace of Spades. They don't even drink crap like that the people at the house drink. Venser denies that the team would have been blamed for drinking all the booze. This is kind of getting silly. Bauer Feldman, who planned the cannabis event, started working on a podcast under agreement with Steele, letting her record at the house. She says she enjoyed her time at the home until it started to unravel. I felt like it was a smaller version of Studio 54, she says, describing the vibe of the home. It was exciting, it was creative, it was a whirlwind, but it was fake, and none of it was real. Other people lived or crashed at the home last summer, including mostly young Instagram famous people who seemingly have a lot of followers for no reason. These guests, Bauer Feldman said, would take over the house and leave drugs, like cocaine, just lying around. Instagram must pay well. I'll continue. She says Venser attempted to keep the two worlds separate, one in which the professionals used the house as podcasting studios, and another where the 20-somethings partied late into the night. I guess we're not talking about the third part where there's a family with four dogs and 2 cats, but I guess that's the third portion. The source close to the situation also said that someone associated with an in-network podcaster moved into one of the studios and would leave dirty clothes out, particularly dirty socks, making the room smell terrible. I'm just going to have to kick somebody's ass if this happens. Venser confirms that other people lived in the home and stayed there, but he says there was no cocaine. Okay. Still, a record request filed in Beverly Hills by The Verge lists more than 40 calls to police about the home since Notorious took over, most of which relate to, quote, disturbing the peace. Nearly all of them came during the COVID-19 pandemic. You know what? We're going to come back with part 5 because this is just too good. Thanks for listening to Mind and Michael. We'll be back tomorrow with part 5. Until next time, bye-bye.